Welcome to We've Got Issues, Girl. We're a weekly podcast for women who are curious about politics. My name is Carrie.
And my name is Sky, and today we are joined by three history-making city councilwomen from Reynoldsburg, Ohio, Angie Jenkins, Shanette Strickland, and Meredith Lawson-Rowe. Thanks for joining us, y'all.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped about this. Can you start by just telling us a little bit about Reynoldsburg?
Reynoldsburg is a small city outside of Columbus. The population is about, I'd say 40,000. We're maybe up to 40. We've changed over the course of time. I moved here 20 years ago, and the population is more diverse. We have a large African-American population, and we now have a large population from the Bhutanese Nepali. And we also have someone from the Bhutanese community who is on city council with us as well. So the population has changed. We are glad to be a part of city council and represent our community that now looks like us. So we're very proud to be on city council and have people to look up to us and be able to communicate with us and be heard and have their voices known in Reynoldsburg. Meredith and Shanette, you can add a little bit about the community as well.
It's outside of Columbus, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We're more east, going towards Wheeling, West Virginia. We're off of 70. I'm going more towards east side.
Yeah, so once again, my name is Shanette Strickland. Thank you for allowing us to be here to tell our story. So I really appreciate that. As President Jenkins alluded to, we are probably about a little over 35,000 here in Reynoldsburg. And the population has changed tremendously over the last few years. And I can't wait to get everyone involved with the census and want them to get everything back from there. And I'm sure our numbers will change. Approximately, we had about 63% of white, and then about 26% African-American. And then we have, as Angie stated, a huge Bhutanese community. There are probably a little over 5,000 of the Bhutanese family that lives here in Reynoldsburg. We have been really working at the Helm ever since our election, and we are just excited to be here. Reynoldsburg is really made up of 4 different wards, and that includes the Franklin County, Licking County, and also Fairfield County. And yeah, so we have 3 different counties here, but it gives us insight on the different counties and being able to network and talk to people and get to know who our true neighbors are. And so, as I stated before, just to have this opportunity is tremendous, and we are excited to be here.
Awesome. So go ahead.
One thing I'd like to chime in on regarding Reynoldsburg is our school system. Our schools are what has drawn a lot of people here to our community. We have like a grassroots level type of school environment, if you will. So we have 1 high school, but 4 different academies. And so that was very strategically put together to keep the community together. So our school system is very strong and one of the leaders in the state. And that is one of the pillars that makes everyone flock to a suburban community, to Columbus, because the schools are great. It's not too big, it's not too small. It's right off of 70. So we're in just the perfect spot.
Cool.
So the 3 of you ran last year and won in November. So this is your first year of your first term. But to back up before that, how did you get involved in politics? How did this all start, I guess?
I would say that I'm new to politics, but I've worked for the state of Ohio for approximately approximately 15 years before I retired in December of 2018. So I'm familiar with politics within the state government. But as far as being a politician, this is new. I was asked to run by Kristen Bryan, who is currently on City Council. And she came to me and said, I think this would be good for you. And she gave me some opportunities that I could select from as far as what I wanted to run for, if I wanted to run in Turrell Township or if I wanted to run for president. And I just said, this wasn't something I planned to do. Let me think about it. And so I kept telling her several times I needed to think about it. And she kept asking me, and I kept saying I had to think about it. And one evening she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going out to dinner with friends. And she said, where? And I said, Vic's Pizza. And she said, well, I have your petitions. I need you to sign them. I'll meet you there. And my husband said, are you sure you want to do this? And I said, no, I keep telling her I don't know. But she kept calling and asking me, and I kept saying, I don't know. So she met me there, and I signed them. And, she kept saying, I think you'd be good at this. And I kept saying, I didn't really think I wanted to do anything like this. This was not part of my retirement plan. So she had to sign. And I still said, I still need to think about this. So I kept thinking about it, and she kept calling. And then she told me that we all were going to meet up at Franklin County to turn in the petitions on a particular day. I don't remember the date. And I said, okay. And I still wasn't sure. I had one foot in, one foot out still, not knowing the particulars about running and being politically correct and just being a politician and what all that entailed. And what she told me was just a little part of what it is you need to do. And I don't think she wanted to scare me away, but it sounded simple, but after getting started, it really isn't as simple as you would think, but it's a lot of work, and it's a big commitment, and it's very challenging to challenge yourself to be a part of that process. But that's how I got started, was with Kristen Bryan asking me several times to run.
Wow. And what about you, Meredith?
Well, my story is kind of similar to Angie's. I am not a politician. I'm a mom. I like to say that I'm my husband's bride, and I'm my kid's mom, and Simona Carter's Gigi. You met Simona Carter. So I'm the person that actually works behind the scenes to make others look good. And so I've always worked in the community, and I've always served, and I've helped on campaigns. And then there was one campaign that I had taken a significant leadership role, but again, in the background. And so Kristen Bryan, who's councilwoman at large at City Council, also asked me to run. And I said, oh, no, not me. I'll help whoever you get to do that. And so they had just begun working on me, and even had my husband. And I'm like, oh, no. And so I finally said, okay, well, I'll do it. And I shared with my husband and my family that if I do this, this is going to be a big commitment, and I'm going to need you guys to support me 100%. In terms of the title politician, I'm new to politics, but I'm not new to serving. I've always served, and I think that helped to kind of turn that negative Nelly off in my mind that I couldn't do it, that I didn't have the education, I didn't have the experience. It was basically, in a nutshell, we all are already doing the work. When I got out there and started knocking doors and meeting my neighbors, their signatures on my petition, I just fell in love with the opportunity to be able to represent my neighbors and to share the pride that I have within my community.
Awesome.
Cool.
And how about you, Shanette? Are you a politician?
Well, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
So my journey started off a little bit different. 2016, 2017, I had already started helping other people get elected into their office. And as Meredith stated and Angie stated before, we have always worked in our community. And someone asked me to be their campaign manager. And I said, wait a minute now, I come from an IT background. I don't know anything about being a politician and knowing that role. However, she thought that I could do the job. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. And help my friend to win her political seat. We came up a little short, but the fact is, you know, as women, we always try to put on that, I can't do this, I can't do that. However, if you just take that step and believe in yourself because someone else believed in you, you can make it happen. And so I started my journey in 2016, 2017. And when the president, 45, was, that's in office, and I just didn't agree with what was going on in Washington, D.C. But most importantly, I wanted to know, how can I impact my community right now, where I live at today? And attending city council, I noticed there was no one that represent what I represent.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have that opportunity to give back to my community, because that's we stated before, that's what we always do. I'm team mom, I sit on the football parent association board. So I did all those things, and now it's about you being from a campaign manager to a candidate, and now ultimately to an elected official. And it was all because I was volunteering on someone else's campaign to do what it took for them to be elected, and also making sure people understand we are here for you and we represent you.
That is awesome. It's so inspiring to hear. I feel like you said it exactly, Shanette, that we as women just continuously tell ourselves we're not qualified for these things. We talk about this a lot on the podcast, like, what is it going to take for you to finally believe in yourself and say, I can do this? I'm already doing most of this work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you guys all know each other before you ran, or how did that team come about?
We met through football, primarily. Our children knew each other and played football together. So we knew of each other before we actually met each other, but our kids have played football, and that's why we call ourselves a football mom, because our kids have played football together. My son is older than their two who just graduated in 2020. My son graduated a year before, but when they were younger, they all still played together. So they know each other, and so that's how we met, was through football. That's how I met them, through football. I'm not sure if it's the same, but I believe we all had that connection through Reynoldsburg football initially. And maybe before that, there was another team before the kids actually started playing in school that they played when they were much younger, like Pee Wee football. So we've been football moms for quite a long time.
Yeah, so
fun story.
Yeah, so Meredith and I believe she's my big sister. Our kids, our youngs who just graduated, class of 2020, they've been knowing each other from the second grade. Oh, wow. And they had that bond already. And I remember going up to Meredith's door, knocking on her door, looking for my son. And I think ever since then, our relationship has all, just bloomed over time, over the years. And as Angie stated, that was the core. We were always involved with football. And that's why we call ourselves the football mom, the women of Reynoldsburg, because it was always that foundation. What brought us together was having to do with community and our children. And we really try to stay true to that when we out in our community, because that's the foundation. That's how all this started, right? Yeah. Because we were already working in our community.
I'd like to add, aside from being football moms, I have a daughter that is the same age as Angie's son. And I didn't know until we happened to be talking how tangled our web is, because my daughter actually is friends with her boys, and at certain times actually help tutor those boys. Right. So they were, brothers and Nandi, if you will. So we are really closer than we actually even know as we begin talking and sharing and building. So our roots actually run deep in the community. And to Shanette's point is, because we're so deep in the community and our kids know one another, back to my point of Reynoldsburg schools, and that's the pillar of our community. Our kids are what brought us together. And so we're grateful for that.
Yeah. That's so neat. And so you ran kind of as a slate, right? Like you ran together and did campaigning together, right?
Yes, we did. As a matter of fact, there was others that campaigned with us, the mayor, the city attorney, Turl Township. We had a large group, even school board. We had a large group that worked together, and it worked out tremendously that we were able to join together, knock on doors together. I was able to go knock, because I was running at large also, I was able to, knock on doors with them and at different times. And it was a good thing because we could call each other and say, what are you doing tonight? What time are you getting off? What time are you getting home? And what are you doing Saturday? What are you doing Sunday? And so we all worked together on different days, going out with each other, knocking on doors. And if I couldn't go, Shanette and Meredith had my literature when they would go knock on someone else's door. So we all worked together, and it worked out really well. We were very fortunate to have such a large group that at any moment or any day you had someone to go with. And if you didn't go or couldn't go for that particular day, someone took your literature with them. So someone was always representing you, even if you weren't there. So it worked out really well that we had such a large group that was able to work together.
Yeah.
It sounds like a dream team.
Yeah.
Yes. And I will also add, in those moments when you are by yourself or felt like you were by yourself, you were tired, you were exhausted because you already had been knocking on doors. And we were there as the women of Reynoldsburg to encourage one another. We are lucky and blessed to have one another there and bounce ideas from, because some people that's running on the slate may not have had that opportunity. But I tell people all the time, it's because, yes, we had a slate, but we ran within a slate of African-American women, because we understood that it's harder to be an elected in that time, and really try to make some true changes when you're talking about being an African-American woman trying to get elected in the city of Reynoldsburg and possibly having the opportunity to make history. And that to me is still mind-boggling, but it was just because we had one another to bounce ideas off of, to encourage one another, say, keep going, you got this. And that's what we did as the women of Reynoldsburg.
And can I just be completely honest?
Yeah.
In terms of a team within a team, because we had an extraordinary slate. I don't think anywhere you'll find a slate as strong as our slate, and the voters spoke, and you see that our slate won. But in terms of these two women right here in these boxes next to me, they keep me accountable. So there's times when I got off work and I said, oh, it's raining. And Angie said, well, it's not raining over here. Or Angie and I would go and knock doors, and then I would be discouraged because of some bad news or for whatever reason. So I'm discouraged. It's, okay, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And so I was able to reciprocate that with her. Yeah. There would be times when Shanette would call me, even today, what is our schedule? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't know, I didn't write it down. And so we keep one another accountable. And then there's times when I felt like this is way over my head, I can't do this. And Shanette would say, no, this is what we're going to do. Just slow down, don't get in your head. And so that is what helped me, and I think helps most people, man, woman, black, or white. If you have a core group that have seen you at your best and seen you at your worst and are able to pick you up and encourage you, dust yourself off and say, okay, it's all right, let's go. So yes, we're within a team, we're family, we're sisters. There's times we get upset with one another, but nobody could ever come in and talk about each other to us.
I love it. When I
Love
ran
that.
last year, Sky was my campaign manager, and Sky and I have been friends for 10 years now. We've been involved in a lot of different campaigns, helping to get other people elected. But when I ran, I knew I needed her to be my campaign manager, not just because of her expertise as a campaign manager, but I needed her just to motivate me.
Support, absolutely.
Yeah, be the person's like, she also is the only person in the world that I know of that loves knocking on doors. Like, this girl loves knocking on doors so much. So those moments during the campaign where you're like, oh my God, I cannot knock on one more door. I'm so tired. I just want to go to Target and not knock on any doors tonight. This guy's like, let's go. Come on, let's go knock on more doors. So you need that on the campaign though. And so it's really great that you guys had each other, because it is really necessary to have somebody just kind of shoving you along sometimes, because it does get very exhausting.
Sky, I want to knock doors with you for Biden. Let's meet halfway.
I'm in.
You should.
Let's do this. I'll come to Reynoldsburg. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, let's road trip. Yeah.
Yes.
So what did the three of you do to prepare to run for office? I think a lot of women expect that you need to have some sort of training or school, or it can be very intimidating to even get started. So when you made the decision to run, what did you do to prepare?
I personally end up doing some training. As I stated before, I kind of started a little earlier than Angie and Meredith. So some of the Main Street training, Lead Ohio, I went to some of the training that was provided. And also I did a lot of my research on my own. And I want women to realize that if you have a heart to provide for the community, to be that voice, you could do anything. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you want to have someone with knowledge, right? You have to do your research. You have to be able to get up and speak to someone, or be able to know what's your win number. Those things that you can find out along the way. But to be a really good candidate, it does sometimes take someone who has been experienced, find a mentor to help you along the way, someone that's saying, that's able to encourage you. But at times, to me, the only thing that it really takes to have that mind to say, I'm gonna do this. And when I say do this, that means doing whatever it takes along the way. Meaning, I may need to get some a little more training, or I need to look at someone regarding doing public speaking. So doing whatever it takes, once you make up your mind that you want to move forward with this decision, but don't let, I don't got this, I don't got that, to be the reason why someone do not run for a position. Because if I can do it, I believe anyone can do it.
Awesome.
Yes, I agree. We weren't experienced as far as running personally in a campaign. I looked to the others who were already on council, like Kristen Bryant. She was able to give us a lot of guidance on what to do and what to do when, and someone give us some ideas on what things cost. So as you were preparing to run, you had some ideas on what you needed, but then you also had to prepare for someone who would ask you to come speak. And we spoke numerous times at numerous events. We even spoke with our opponents. So there was a lot of times we were nervous, and we got through it, and you get better as you go along. You think you know who you are, but then when someone asks you to tell them who you are and you have to speak about who you are, you have to write those things down in order to remember exactly what you want to say and how you want to come across and why you're running. You have to be able to tell people why you want to run, why you want to be on city council, why you want to represent your residents on city council. So there's things that you prepare for, but as Shanette said, if we can do it, anyone can do it. And it's just nice to have someone to be able to bounce things off of. And going to a lot of events, I think we learned a lot from going to a lot of events in Franklin County. And I live in Licking County, so I did go to a few in Licking County as well. But you get to know other people who are in positions, and you learn from talking to them, and they will also tell you anything you need to know. They'll answer any of your questions. And just like if anyone has any questions, they can email us, call us. We're very accessible, anyone can ask us anything, and we are more than willing to help anyone who's interested in running as a candidate.
Thank you.
Awesome. How about you, Meredith?
I think they've pretty much covered it in terms of the training. Networking and relationship building is very important as well. And that's what I hold really dear to my heart. And once you are armed with the information, it's up to us, up to you, the individual that, you know, the task of running for office is to figure out how you, you know, make it your own. So you can have all the training in the world, but until you internalize it and make it your own and put your own spin on it, it's just a bunch of words on paper.
Yeah.
So one thing that I have tried to do along with the training is to research and to read. And then I like to study people, and I like, you know, those that I want to emulate or those that I think are great leaders, and even not so great leaders. You take away the best of what they have that is similar to you, and then you also see examples of how you don't want to lead. So it's just being yourself, being your authentic self. We all want to, you know, put on airs, but at the end of the day, people just want to know that you're real, that you care, that they're not invisible, and that you hear them.
Yeah.
So powerful. I hear you. Oh man. And it's so fun to hear that you guys have each other and you can lean on each other, and that's really lucky. It's rare.
Yes, we are blessed.
Really cool. So what do you guys see as some of the biggest challenges you're facing right now in your work?
COVID.
Yeah.
That has changed things a lot for everyone. Working from home and having Zoom meetings, things that we've never done before. That I think was one of our biggest challenges, whether to meet or not meet, or we were going to go back into the council chambers in July, and then we changed it to continuing on Zoom. I think that was something that we all had to learn to adjust our lives differently as far as working around that. Just being new, we've been in now for almost 7 months, and we've learned a lot. I think Black Lives Matter and protesting, that was something new that we had to work around and learn about and decide on which avenue to take as far as joining in and protesting in Reynoldsburg and just trying to make things a peaceful protest, but still wanted to be involved. So those were the two things that were different that we didn't plan for. And then from that, it turned into hiring a new police chief and trying to decide if we were going to hire a deputy chief also, and police reform. I think that's the hot topic right now for everyone, is police reform and how we're going to go about doing that, and how to have diversity training and other training that may be necessary for our police force. I think those are the hot topics. We have many others that we have, excuse me, that we have also that we're working with, and some other legislation that has been brought about from my two other council women who have brought about a lot of changes. They can talk about the things that they brought about recently, and also with COVID, with wearing a mask. But we also have some other new legislation that they have brought on to the council chamber floors and successfully brought about and was approved.
Cool. Let's hear it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I just want to share one of the biggest challenges in terms of what Madam President said is the pandemic, is, you know, trying to weigh business as usual and socially distancing. We were sworn in at the end of December, took office officially January 1, and one of the first pieces of legislation that we had to review and discuss was city code, and the code had not been touched probably for since the 60s or the 50s.
Wow.
1968.
Wow.
Okay, so the city code had not been changed for 50 years, and that was one of our first jobs. So you can imagine how sexy of a piece of legislation that was, and how much
Just
feedback.
dig right into the dirty details.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jeez.
So the challenge is, we were new, we hit the ground running, we're drinking from a fire hose, and then bam, the world. We're in a pandemic. We're on sheltering in place. Our world is different than we've known it, but we have to continue business as usual, if you will. How does one do that? We're learning as we go. So having COVID, the pandemic, business as usual, and trying to work through your new normal. And then there is an economic crisis, and then the racial disparity. And so the pandemic has basically pulled back the curtain for all of the inequalities throughout the world, and then drill down to our nation, our state, and our city. So those challenges that we're working through. Nobody in our seats have ever had to work through things such as this.
Yeah.
So it's encouraging, but it's sometimes frightful, and you hope that you're making the right decision, and we just have to do the best we can with what we have. So yeah, it's really something. It's exciting, it's challenging, it's scary, it's difficult, it's liberating, it's learning, all of that and rolled in one.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a legislation piece is, on July the 13th, we end up mandating the mask ordinance in our city. And again, a lot of people don't want us to mandate anything, right?
Yeah.
And that was really hard for us. But I believe that with this council, we know that we can't just talk about economy without really protecting our residents, our neighbors. And we need to have that understanding. And I tell people, love me enough to protect me because I'm loving you enough to protect you.
Sure.
And it's not about us as individuals that, yes, we want our economy back, but we got to take the steps to get there. So that was really an important legislation when you say, Meredith, that we had to get through to let our community know, our neighbors know that we are fighting for you, we hear you. And even those that was maybe against having the mask, we still listened. We still heard you, we read every email. And it was one of those things that as a council, we had to do what's best for our city, for our economy, and for our residents to know, let them know that this is a path, along with everything else, but to get us where we need to be, moving forward. So that was a tough legislation to get through with so many people, for and against it. I know another go ahead, I'm sorry, Meredith.
Oh, since we're on that subject, I just wanted to share that this pandemic, I shared, it's pulled back the curtain. It has engaged more people than ever before because our meetings are posted live. And so there's been times we've had how many people on any given time?
Probably 100, and that's
I want to say it's been over 100, especially this piece. We had several emails. Our clerk read emails from people, plus we had some live comments, and that was the first hour of the meeting. And I'm like, golly gee whiz, we haven't even gotten to any of the business. We're still in the community comments.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing that this pandemic has really forced our community to be engaged, and we totally love it because we can't represent you unless we know what is your passion and what you value. We want to make sure we bring that same passion and that same that fire and energy even if we're in boxes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. So what's some of the other legislation y'all have gotten passed or are working on?
I most recently passed the vacant legislation here in Reynoldsburg. There were many empty homes that had sat for years in our community, and also commercial property that no one had did anything about. And so that was one of the promises that I made when running this past year, to make sure that people understood how important it was to clean up our vacant homes and commercial properties here. So we end up passing that legislation, and we are on our way, because if you know, the people invest in their property. And so we want to make sure that our community is up to part where it needs to be. And if we're looking for new businesses to come to Reynoldsburg, then we need to make sure that those businesses understand that we are serious about keeping our property value up, and also inviting new businesses for new opportunities here in Reynoldsburg. So that ended up passing here most recently. A couple other resolutions that we thought was really important to us was introducing the racism is a public health crisis, to make sure people understood, again, as COVID-19 has pulled back a lot of sheets of cover that was covered up for so long, and saying this is an issue.
Yeah.
Minorities at every level, education, having to do with education, poverty, having to do with the wealth, every level, the minorities are suffering. And it's time to have those true conversations. And I tell people all the time that doing a resolution is just not good enough. What are those steps that you're going to do afterwards? So what we did, we end up sending that resolution down to the state house for the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, and also on the state representative side, to let people know we are serious about what we're doing here in Reynoldsburg. So what we're going to do next? Well, we need to create a women business and enterprise, and also minority business enterprise. The city have to be responsible to make sure that we're just not going to say this, we're going to create opportunities, opportunities for people. So again, taking it to the next level. Meredith, you want to talk a little bit about the Crown Act?
Yes. So something else that we were fortunate enough to pass, and it was unanimous, and we are just so proud that it was unanimous, that the anti-discrimination ordinance was passed, and that protects all protected classes. And the bonus to that is the Crown Act, and that is protecting those people of color from wearing natural hairstyles. So it could be like natural hair, straight hair, cornrows, locks, twist, flat twist, braids. So this country, let's see, the Crown Act anniversary just passed early in July. The very first anniversary was initially passed in California. And it's because those of us in our community, those people of color, Black people, we have been sort of painted into a box that our hair must be, Eurocentric in order to be professional. And I've actually fallen into that category. I've been so blessed to work in places that accept me as my authentic self. But even dominant culture, we seem to think that we need to assimilate in order to look professional. Well, what does that mean? I mean, as long as I'm, neat and clean, I'm professional. And so we are just protecting individuals because there have been so many horror stories of a woman being asked to change her hair in order to work in a certain environment, or for a young man to cut his locks in order to participate in sports. So again, bravo, bravo that we were able to get that passed unanimously. And then also within that anti-discrimination we are just so excited because this has been an ordinance that was 2 years in the making from when we were sitting in the audience of City Council from 2 years ago. And there were previous members that said that they didn't think that racism existed in Reynoldsburg and there was no need to worry about voting on that. So the act didn't even get out of committee in order to be voted upon. So to Councilwoman Strickland's point, that was a promise that we ran on as a slate, that we would work to enact an ordinance to protect all the protected classes. And then something else that I'd like to share, that we were able to introduce the mayor with our support and our encouragement, introduce a proclamation recognizing Juneteenth as a city. It wasn't a holiday, but nonetheless, Reynoldsburg recognized Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And on top of that, we actually got to have a Juneteenth celebration on the steps of City Hall. And that was so dear to all of our hearts, because if anybody knows our American history, City Hall has not been very kind to people of color in terms of voting. And so you have a diverse slate that embraces our American history and celebrates our culture, and Juneteenth just warm my heart tremendously, if you just can't feel.
Yeah.
I can feel that energy through the screen. It's so
yes.
I mean,
So I was so thrilled that we were
I love it
to do this as a team for Reynoldsburg.
It's also so awesome because you three are the first African-American females to serve on City Council in Reynoldsburg. And so I don't know, it's very powerful. It's very moving to see that work that you guys are doing,
cool.
and actually work that's representative of your community too, right? I feel like you know, you've already touched on that. Reynoldsburg does have a pretty large African-American population, and sometimes I'm like, I cannot believe it's 2020 and we're just now getting African-American leadership in places where we need it the most, right? So that's really great legislation.
You know, Carrie, not too long ago, I have a friend that's close in age to me. She graduated high school in the 80s. She's originally from Columbus. She went to Walnut Ridge, and she said she remembers a time when she was in high school, and whenever she would hang out with her friends, her dad told her she'd come up Livingston but could not cross over Bryce Road. And it was just an unspoken rule that Reynoldsburg was a sundown town. And if you don't know what that means if you're Black, don't get caught out here.
Yeah.
Really? I've never heard that.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Just as recent as the 80s. I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's much history here in Reynoldsburg, even having to do with the African American and how people were hung here in Reynoldsburg. And so there's a lot of history that, again, a lot of time have been swept up under the carpet, and no one wants to really have those true conversations, because I believe when you start having those true conversations, people will be able to open up a little bit more about what's going on and how we can deal with things and how we can actually move forward, because that should be our goal, right? Like, if we have these honest conversations, we can actually make some decisions, some true decisions on how to move this country forward, how to move our community forward, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Well, and I feel like that is exactly why we need more women, and especially women of color, in elected office. To have that representation, to make these laws and put that policy in place that truly represents our entire population.
Yeah. And I think it also does often start at a local level. Like, so many times I hear people say, like, oh, this should be something that, you know, US Congress and Senate deals with. But isn't it like this? I know this wasn't a question on our list, but don't you think it's more powerful coming from a local level? Like, I always try to tell people, like, politics starts local. Like, it starts in your own backyard first. You can't wait for the president or Congress to fix something for you. Like we can start right now here in our own communities.
Right,
Let me
exactly.
give you a quick example. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
A quick example. What happens in city council in terms of taxes and legislation is our kitchen table far sooner than anything touches our table from the state level or the national level.
Yeah.
And so someone asked me, being on council, being a woman, being a Black woman, do you think that you're held to a different esteem? Or do you think that your neighbors want more out of you than what they would their state legislator or their senator? And I think that we should all be held to the same standard, number one. But because you're gonna see me in the supermarket or see me walking in my neighborhood or see me at the football game, you're gonna ask me that question. And I'm still compelled to make sure that I am able to respond to your question, respond to you in writing or the next time I see you. And you're holding me accountable because you see me, you touch me. You don't get to see, our state legislators and our congresswomen and men and our senators as often as you get to see me. So yes, all politics is local. We just have to figure out where we can get the most bang for our buck. But it's influence too. What we do on the local level will help to influence what they're doing in the state house. Just as Councilwoman Strickland shared, the resolutions that we pass, we don't do it just for kicks and giggles. We pass those resolutions so that our state legislators know this is who you're representing. This is what we care about and what you should help to push through.
Absolutely.
There was another example that recently when we decided that we were going to mandate masks, and the day that we scheduled to talk about it, that evening, the governor decided to mandate it for certain counties. And that's just another example of taking control of what you can do for your community and not waiting on the governor to make a decision, because he may have never made a decision or would have delayed it even further when we have the capabilities of doing something here locally without waiting for the governor to do something for all of Ohio or just for, and actually when he did it for Franklin County, but he didn't do it for the other part of Reynoldsburg, which is Licking County or Fairfield. So there was just a piece of Reynoldsburg that he said that the mandate was for. So for Reynoldsburg Council, we're able to do something locally for our residents instead of waiting for state government to do that for us.
Yeah. That's so great.
So what advice would you give to a woman who wants to either get involved in politics or might be thinking about running for office? Where would you tell her to start?
I will tell her to get involved with her community. More so that we have like the Reynoldsburg area Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
I started there.
Yeah.
I started helping other people get elected. I was writing postcards. I was knocking on doors. I was helping someone else get elected. So you want to start that process, start now. This coming November is a huge election. There are many candidates that's going to need our help due to the pandemic. We're not doing the door-to-door knocking. Make phone calls for those individuals. Get a feel of what it means to be a candidate. Volunteer your time to help someone else. And as Councilwoman Lawson-Rowe stated, try to mimic some of the things that you see other candidates that's doing really well, who's running for office. But the time starts now. Getting involved now on what things matter to you, what changes you want to see. So along with the training and everything, volunteer your time. That is how we can start with change, making sure that we get the right people in the seats who matters most, who matters about what I care about in my community and what's going on. And so my advice, start now, start doing your research, volunteer, and help people good people get elected to their seats.
Yeah.
What parts, sorry, just a little sidetrack. What
Mhm.
parts of training that you did you feel like were most valuable to you? I mean,
Oh,
I feel
can
like
I
it
take
probably
that?
depends on skill set and individuals, but like, did you really appreciate learning how to make a fundraising call, or like what kind of training was most valuable?
I would love to take that one. So, Lead Ohio. I'm, I'm an open book. I probably tell you too much. So I went in with my eyes wide shut. I was like, oh no, I don't want to go to training. And so I missed the first training for whatever reason. So the second training, Shanette and I went together, and we were talking that morning, and I was like, oh, I really don't want to go. She was like, well, it's good. You'll learn it. You'll meet a lot of people. And I'm like, I don't want to go. So I get there. And so I'm like all in my head. I see all these people thinking, they're so much smarter than me. They know all of this that I don't know. And it was awesome to be in a room full of people in training that were at the same level, if you will, as me, because they were mostly first-time candidates. Some had backgrounds in world, some didn't. But the one training that I hold dear to my heart is writing a campaign plan. I'm a more visual person and a visual learner. And so that campaign plan helped me to get the that I had all over in my head and put it onto paper in terms of, what's my goal? How am I going to reach my goal? How much money do I have to raise? Why do I have to raise this money? What am I going to buy with this money? How am I going to get an endorsement? Why do I want the endorsement? I mean, just having that plan and being able to put it on paper, organize my thoughts, and knowing what a win number is. I didn't know what a win number is, and why is that important? And so having those types of details, so when it came time for all of those endorsement packets, I was able, I had, a foundation, a point of reference. So a campaign plan was huge to me because it helped to organize my thoughts. And it was a big, hairy goal when I saw it. And I sat down with my campaign manager and I said, listen here, I'm going to need you to sit down with me and we're going to go through this page by page. And we went through it page by page. And Councilwoman Kristen Bryant is a very laid back, calm, cool, elected type of person. And you can tell I'm high energy and I'm like, help me do it. And so we were like going through it. And I was like, oh, this isn't that bad. Oh yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I told you.
I think it's so much of a more like reachable reality.
Absolutely. So that campaign plan helped me to organize how I needed to run my campaign. And so, of course, it wasn't perfect. That's one thing. We as women, we want everything to be perfect, buttoned up. We want to have all the I's dotted. We want to have all the T's crossed. And we 97.2% ready to say, I'll try. When our male counterparts might say, oh, I know 20, 35% of that. I can do it.
Yeah.
So we have to tell ourselves and encourage other women that we can do this. House Leader Emilia Sykes says, normally you have to ask women 7 times. 7 times.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it?
I think I was asked probably, 15? What about you, Ann?
It was probably 20. You
100.
probably asked no more than that because I kept saying, I have to think about it. I don't know how many times I said that. The one training that—
Actually, someone just gave you petitions.
The Ohio Democrat Party, they also had some training called Main Street Initiative training that I attended, and it also was some of the same training that the other Ohio Lead had as well. I recommend training, and also what Shanette said as far as volunteering, because I volunteered and helped with Christian Bryan when she ran. And I also did work with the Obama campaign when he was running, and we had house parties and we did fun things like that. So I think that helps you to get energized when you're volunteering and you're not on the hot seat if you're not, running yourself. But if you're volunteering, you're more energized and energetic. And I think you learn a lot from the person that's running. And I learned a lot from Christian Bryan. I didn't do any door knocking. I just was not ready to do that. That was a little intense for me. But once we started doing it together as a group, I didn't mind so much. But in thinking about that, that was a struggle for me, and fundraising was a struggle for me. But you do learn a lot from other people when you're helping them with their campaign. And I highly recommend that, because you learn an awful lot and you're not on a hot seat at that moment.
Right.
Yeah, one other thing that along with the campaign plan and everything, I come from an IT background, so I'm very analytical. And for me, it was like really trying to understand what the previous year's numbers were, who won, how much money did they raise. So I'm trying to make a benchmark for myself and exceed. And so for me, it was really trying to go out, making sure that I understood what their win number was and how much money I needed to look at, because I believe when you're looking at the previous year, it almost tells a story.
Yeah.
And it almost kind of helps you, and my mind helps me to understand, okay, these are how many votes I need. This is how much money I need to raise. So learning that aspect and really what those numbers meant to help me in my campaign, that's, to me, from a historical perspective, understanding that the numbers, the analytical side of things, because I think for me, that set a strategic set up for me, that platform on how best I was able to run my campaign. It tells a story there.
Yeah.
And you can do that anywhere, I think probably across the country. You can look up all of that data as public record. So you can look at your local Board of Elections websites. You can look at, campaign finance filings to see what your, predecessors had to do and what it's going to take. And putting that reality in your head is helpful to sort of think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can our listeners follow you guys? You guys are so exciting. I'm going to be Facebook friends with all of you. But can you tell our listeners about how to get in touch and how to follow what you're doing?
Well, the main way to get in touch with all of us is on our city council page, where we have our bios, we have our emails, our phone numbers. That's the main place where anyone can reach any of us on city council. And then we all have a Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. We did have a campaign page. I'm not sure if anyone's using that or switched it, once we were elected. I don't use my campaign page anymore, but we all did have a separate Facebook page for our campaign when we were running, but I don't have a separate page. I just have my normal Facebook page, but primarily anyone can reach us through the clerk of courts. She gets many emails that she forwards to our regular email for us, but that's primarily the way that I communicate with people. I'm not sure if anyone else has any other additional pages.
Yeah. So anyone that would love to reach out to me, have a conversation, can reach me by my cell phone number, 929-430-6802. Also, I am on Facebook, Shanette for Reynoldsburg. And also I tweet or do Twitter, whatever they call it, Strickland for us, Strickland, FORUS for us. So I am, as President Jenkins stated before, of course, anyone can contact us by our directly going to the Reynoldsburg City Council website, and we should be able to get in contact through that way too.
Cool.
Yes, so piggybacking on whatever Madam President said and Councilwoman Strickland, my political Facebook page is Lawson-Rowe for Reynoldsburg. So that's Lawson-Rowe, no hyphen, the number 4, Reynoldsburg, Lawson-Rowe for Reynoldsburg. My personal page is wide open, and it's my name, Meredith Lawson-Rowe. I'm on Instagram at Mere_Ruth. My Twitter is M_Lawson_Rowe. We have been doing our hashtags for the past year or longer. And so if you want to just quickly find us, hashtag Women of Reynoldsburg, hashtag Football Moms. Those are two hashtags that we use a lot. And so that will take you directly to any of us.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's how I was able to find information about you. I just Googled hashtag Women of Reynoldsburg and a bunch of Columbus Dispatch articles came up. So I was like, oh, cool. So
There we go.
before we leave, will each one of you give our listeners a call to action? Who wants to start?
Okay, so my call to action would be, number one, make sure that you challenge someone to come out to vote. It's important that this year we get everyone who is 17 registered to vote, who'll be 18 before the November election. It's really important that we do that. Again, you vote how you want to, but the most important thing is to vote. This coming election, it's so important to make sure that your voice is being heard and vote down the ballot. Don't stop. Vote down the ballot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
She took mine. So that lets you know how important it is.
Yes.
Vote down the ballot. Do your research. If I can just be clear, years ago, before I was really involved and engaged, I would not vote for judicial races because in Ohio, the judicial races do not have an R or a D behind it. So we all know if a no vote means you're voting for the wrong person. So do your research, because we need to make sure that we have the right judges in the right courtrooms for the right reason. Know that there's a racial disparity here in many of our major metropolitan cities. And so if we don't have the right judge in that seat, we don't know if that person is really having his or her right justice. Vote down the ballot, do your research, and know who those judicial candidates are.
Definitely.
Well, I was going to talk about voting, but I'm going to start with something else, a little different. My call to action would be to do and complete the 2020 census. To do that, go to www.2020census.gov. Reynoldsburg, the last I heard, we were probably a little over 70% completed. So I am encouraging everyone to complete the 2020 census. It only takes, 5 minutes, if that. It doesn't take very long. It's very simple. It's very easy to do. And if you do that, then you won't have people calling. You won't have people knocking on your door trying to get that information. The other ask that I have is that another way to get involved, I have been a poll worker, except for when I was a candidate, and they are looking for poll workers. Anyone can do it if you're over 18. You sign up for the county in which you live in. So I live in Licking County, and I've been a poll worker for Licking County. They pay you for the training. They pay you on the day that you work. And sometimes they pay you for the day before, because if you're helping to set up the equipment. But get involved, be a poll worker. It's very important, and I always have fun. I do it with the same people every year. We bring donuts, and you get a lunch break, you come back, and you learn a lot, and you see your neighbors, and you get to know the people that live in your community. So that is something that was publicized on the news the other day, that they were looking for poll workers. So you just call the Ohio Board of Elections, or you can call Franklin County Board of Elections or Licking County, wherever you live, call the Board of Elections, and you can become a poll worker. And then with that, also, you can vote absentee. You don't have to wait until November. you can vote absentee. My mother has already requested her ballot. So you can vote absentee and get that done and out the way, and you don't have to worry about COVID or going face to face or them changing the date or changing that we're not doing it face to face. We don't know what it's going to look like come November. So you can request an absentee ballot and you can get that done and out of the way, and you don't have to worry about waiting until November. So that is the two that I would like to see, or actually that was three. So the census, be a poll worker, and vote early.
Love
Awesome.
it. I feel so energized.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been just really cool to talk to the three of you. And I hope our listeners enjoyed it as well, because I learned a lot from all of you, and this is really cool to see. Congratulations on your win and your first year of your first term. Also, we're excited to see what you guys do down in Reynoldsburg. So to close it out, thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today. We'll be back next Tuesday for a brand new episode of We've Got Issues, Girl. Don't forget to like, rate, and review us on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you're listening. Our music today is by Breakmaster Cylinder, and this has been a Girls Media production. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So thanks.
Thanks.